Welcome to the Kids Eating Broccoli podcast, where we believe that raising healthy kids shouldn't be complicated. Our mission is to inspire 20 million families worldwide to take the steps to raise the healthiest generation in our history. We'll interview some of the world's leading experts in nutrition, human potential, and children's health, as well as extraordinary chefs and foodies to gain insight into simple, fun, and creative ways to introduce natural health into homes across this planet. Some exciting news to share with everyone. I have teamed up with one of the most dynamic people in the ADHD, autism, chronic illness, natural healing world. Her name is Jen Kozak, and she's the author of Healing Without Hurting and the kids' book, A Healthy New Me and ADHD Free. And we've teamed up to create a special group experience for parents of kids who are struggling with any of these conditions, who are looking to help their kids function better and heal naturally, drug-free. The two of us work a lot individually with parents and on social media and online and podcasts and so forth, and we get lots of questions from parents, and often the same questions come up over and over again, which are, there's so much information out there, how do I know what direction to go? You know, I read this book and it told me to eat these things and feed my kid these things, and I read this other book that told me something else, and I read this book that said to get these tests, and I read this book that said those tests are useless and do these things instead. So we decided that what would be a valuable service would be to team up together, bring our own strengths, mine from the natural health, nutrition, neurology world, hers from, she's a practicing psychotherapist and the mom of two kids who she's helped heal from these types of conditions naturally. So we have a lot of awesome background to bring to the table to really support parents like you. And our goal is to be able to lead you through step by step and be able to give you feedback along your journey. So the format is primarily a closed Facebook group, and it has a totally affordable monthly fee because we wanted to make it accessible and affordable for many people to be involved so we could get out there and make a difference, because both of us have the mission of impacting a huge number of parents and kids in this world and make the next generation the best generation. I am going to put the link in the show notes. So if you're not listening on the kidseatingbroccoli.com website or kidseatingbroccoli.podcast.com website, go there, find the show notes for this episode, and you'll find the link to find out more about the group, to sign up. I highly encourage you, and thank you for listening. And for our next guest, we have Dr. Jack Wolfson with us, the Paleo Cardiologist. He's going to share with us about his expertise and his insight into a healthy lifestyle, more of an ancestral lifestyle, from his perspective as a cardiology expert, and then also a paleo nutrition expert, and also the father of some children who's going through it himself and raising healthy kids the best he can. So welcome, Dr. Jack. Great to have you with us. And I'd love to start just by you letting our audience know a little bit about you, kind of your backstory, how you got to be where you are today.
Yeah, sure thing, Dr. Brad. I'm a board-certified cardiologist. I finished up my training in 2002. So after 10 years of medical training, I'm a freshly minted cardiologist. I'm out in practice, and I'm starting to get a little frustrated because patients aren't getting well. They're on a lot of pharmaceuticals, a lot of procedures. And amongst that frustration, I saw my own father getting sick, and he had a Parkinson's-like illness. And he eventually gets diagnosed at the Mayo Clinic. And the Mayo Clinic says, we don't know why your father has this illness. We have no treatment for this illness. He's going to die from this illness within the next few years. And then right at that time, I met a young woman who opened up my eyes to health and wellness. And she said, you're in the wrong space. You're in the sickness system. You got to get over to the health system. And what she said made perfect sense. And I started to change. I started to change my life. I started to change the way that I saw patients, and really became a doctor of causation. Well, this young woman would become my wife, And she is a DC, a doctor of chiropractic, but as she says, doctor of cause. And she says, Jack, you got to become a doctor of cause. And that's exactly what I did. So I left the big practice in 2012, opened up our own practice called The Doctors Wolfson, and we're thedoctorswolfson.com. And the rest has been a total whirlwind. And I really feel like I've stepped outside of the matrix, if you will, and really can see what we can do from a lifestyle standpoint for any disease.
Yeah, that's great. It's interesting to have both perspectives, like where you were within, it sounds like you were classically trained or Western medically trained and went through in that realm for, quite some time before launching off in a different direction. So you kind of get both sides of the coin, and I think it's also notable that you've made that decision to go, to the doctor of causation, like you mentioned, and focus on, things like lifestyle and nutrition in particular. And in knowing you, I know that you're, obviously much more happy and satisfied with the results you're getting with people, actually helping them to heal. So let's jump into kind of why I have you on our ADHD summit and what seems like you might be able to share with our audience. So I'm going to sort of ask the open-ended question and see where we go with it. But what's the how and the why of sort of the paleo lifestyle related to ADHD? Like, why is this something to look at for parents, and what might some of the benefits be for their children?
You got it. And that's really the focus of my book. And my book is called The Paleo Cardiologist, The Natural Way to Heart Health. But it's the natural way to any kind of health condition. And whether it's ADHD or cardiovascular disease or cancer, these are all preventable conditions. And if we start really with the basics, what we'll call the paleo lifestyle, which would encompass paleo nutrition, then we will get tremendous results for our children. And paleo essentially means old, prehistoric, times before history, the old Stone Age, that's paleo. And lots of people have documented the benefits of paleo nutrition and paleo lifestyle. It's in many different books. It's in the literature from the explorers that traveled around the world in 1600s, 1700s, Captain Cook, Magellan, even Columbus. I mean, the writings of those people, and when they came across the natives, how healthy the natives were. So if we return to a native lifestyle in the 21st century and being realistic about it, but trying to do the best that we can, we're going to get extraordinary results for our children, for adults, for anyone who's paying attention, and anyone who wants to really go after the cause. We can do it with that paleo lifestyle.
Well, great. So why don't you tell us, if someone's maybe heard of it or but not really looked into what that really means, can you kind of give us sort of an outline or a basic understanding of going from sort of the standard American lifestyle or whatever country you're into paleo? What are some of the significant differences?
Well, let's take a look at just three components of a healthy paleo lifestyle. Number one, focus on sunshine. Sunshine, sunshine, sunshine. Our ancestors were in the sun, in and out of the sun all day long. And the sun does so many amazing things. The sun was here before mankind. The sun will be here after mankind in a fatalistic type of view, unless the next generations really take a hold on changing the way the world is going, and I think they will. So the importance of the sun coming into the body to create something like vitamin D. Now, it goes much more than that, but vitamin D is one factor. And if you look at people with, children with the highest levels of vitamin D, they've got the lowest risk of attention deficit. Why? Not necessarily the vitamin D itself, because the vitamin D does have receptors in just about every single cell in the body, including tons in the brain. But it's also about the sunshine that comes in and lowers inflammation, increases ATP production, makes melatonin happen. So when we go to bed, we can have high levels of melatonin to help us sleep. Sun increases nitric oxide. Sun, seasonal affective disorder. All these mental health issues you're at higher risk for when you get less sunshine. So taking that one simple strategy of the paleo lifestyle would be sunshine. The second thing, Dr. Brad, I would tell people is about sleep. Our children, just like the adults, go to sleep with the sun down, and they would naturally awake with the sunrise. I see it in my children. It works. That is how our ancestors have done it for millions of years. Get your children in bed at an earlier time. The being awake, watching TV in the artificial light, looking at electronics, looking at cell phones, having your children's babysitter be the computer or video games, that's neglect, and that will lead to ADHD and worse. So we have to get them to sleep on time. The artificial lights are killing them. They're killing us. This is in the medical literature. This is not debatable. This is fact. Whether or not you can choose to accept this fact, that's up to you. The third factor, of course, would be nutrition. And paleo nutrition is about eating a hunter-gatherer type diet, tons and tons of vegetables, very low sugar consumption, except for that found in fruit. And then, of course, it is free-range grass-fed meats, tons of wild seafood, nuts, seeds, eggs, avocados, coconuts, olives. That is the perfect paleo diet. If there's one thing I would tell people to get out of their children's life, it is gluten. Gluten destroys the gut barrier and then the brain barrier, and now you have ADHD. So get the gluten out of their lives. Do everything organic and preferably low sugar. Let's start with that. If you do dairy, make it raw. But that's how we roll. And then, like I said, seafood, omega-3 found only from seafood, such as wild salmon, sardines, anchovies, pure brain food for your child. And they need it. And so does the pregnant woman to prevent their child developing ADHD. Not a big fan in the genetic discussion here. I think everything from our environment is what influences our genes to develop symptoms.
Yeah, it makes some good sense. I mean, certainly not to go down the genetic road too far, but, we see the diagnosis of ADHD at epidemic levels, and that's just not how strictly genetic conditions work. So certainly we have to look at the environment and the lifestyle. And I think, it's interesting to with some of those things, like getting out in the sun, that's what you went to, number one. And so much of the messaging we get is, the sun is dangerous and we should stay away from the sun. So I think it's interesting to consider that that's, the first thing that you talked about. And even, we spend so much time in the artificial light and indoors. And it sounds like, and it makes sense, I mean, from what I understand about paleo, that it's really looking at all the ways that we would naturally have been living, for most of human history. And so, I mean, getting your kid outside, that might be a challenge. That might be easier than changing their diet in a lot of cases. A lot of times we hear from ADHD, parents of ADHD kiddos, or, even on the autism spectrum, that they're very picky eaters. That's a challenge, when I share about nutrition, I get that back a lot. Like, well, how will I ever get my kid to eat, vegetables? All they'll eat is macaroni and cheese. And so how do you talk to parents about that kind of thing?
Listen, I've never had to raise a child like that. So I understand the frustrations, but, what if your child stomped their feet and said they're not going to eat until you gave them a pack of cigarettes? I mean, it's at some point, every child will eat, and at the very least, they have to be gluten-free. So you can't, if you're going to do a gluten-free mac and cheese, it better be a homemade mac and cheese made from organic, gluten-free rice, noodles, whatever that shape is for the mac and cheese, along with using cheese would be the best way to do it. You cannot just open up a box of Kraft macaroni and cheese and give it to your child because that's the only thing they will eat. I have a colleague that I used to work with, and he's a hospitalist, so he's a general internal medicine, but works only in the hospitals. And he has a son that's very, very non-functional on the spectrum. Fully autistic, and autistic child, and all the kid and the father, the doctor, says all he will eat is pizza, and I can't even fathom that conversation. because it's the pizza that's driving his condition. And these parents just fail to recognize it. Number one, I think that I don't know. I don't want to lay judgment on these parents, but in any case, get the child gluten free and see what that does. The children are not in control. We are. But once again, and we start them off, very early. This whole genetic, proposition is just a joke. Our ancestors, we've evolved for millions and millions of years on this planet. We're not genetically programmed to develop mental health issues. There was a movie a few years ago called Castaway with Tom Hanks, the volleyball Wolfson. If we all lived with Tom Hanks on that remote island, getting sunshine, getting sleep, eating coconuts, fish, and vegetables, in a pollution-free environment, nobody's got ADHD, nobody's got heart disease, nobody's got cancer.
Right. That's funny to think of that as an ideal lifestyle, but it really is, based on what you're saying, for sure. So say a parent, has been thinking about this, or wants to go that direction. They pull gluten out of the diet. What would they expect to see? I mean, would something change the next day? How long might it take to notice a difference, and what kind of differences might they notice first?
I mean, we hear this, overnight. Obviously, I don't see a lot of children that are on the spectrum, but, my wife, Dr. Heather, certainly has. And I've seen parents who have children and grandchildren that are on the spectrum, and I hear from them all the different changes that they make based on conversations with the doctors, Wolfson. And it's overnight. And, I'm not saying that you'll take a child who is fully on the spectrum and reverse them overnight, but changes can be very quick. And I think, Dr. Brad, you see this in your children, and I do as well. You feed a child sugar and they're bouncing off the walls. So it just makes sense to not feed them sugar. Gluten, changes from gluten can happen very quickly. Going organic can lead to changes very quickly, getting away from all the artificial, sweeteners, all the artificial ingredients, all of the chemicals, all the pesticide glyphosate, found in Roundup. These changes can happen very quickly. Some people respond to getting rid of dairy very quickly. Putting these children on a tasty protein powder, like a healthy detox protein shake. We have a product on our website called Daily Defense, and Daily Defense is New Zealand grass-fed whey protein, which I think is the best source of protein on the planet, and the cleanest source and the most effective source, and that's in the literature on what that does, for gut health. Putting children on probiotic drinks, things like that. Can make major impacts. So yeah, I think, Dr. Brett, and just like the whole sunshine, or even just getting them to bed earlier, I think we can witness changes literally overnight.
Yeah, well, it makes a lot of good sense too, because when you mention those three things, right, sunshine, sleep, and then eating actual food, they seem so basic and obvious and a certain mindset. And, because those are significant enough that you're mentioning them as the top three, we know that our lifestyle as a culture is so far away from those things, getting out in the sunshine or getting to bed on time. All of those things, are so kind of in the distant past now culturally that, it kind of makes some good sense that these conditions are on the rise as these habits and lifestyles have gone down, and that the tide, could switch the other way by making those simple changes. So that's wonderful. So,
if I may, just kind of get in one more point here, because I don't want to lose this. Is that when children are born, even before children are born, people have a choice in their health care, and you can either go to a sickness doctor, or you can go to a wellness doctor. And the wellness doctor is the doctor of chiropractic. The doctor of chiropractic that has a family practice or a pediatric centered practice, that's the person you need to plug into, because you get into that system and you get your child adjusted at a very, very, very young age, and you put them into the health system, that's where they're going to thrive. You get into the sickness system with the pediatrician and the antibiotics and the vaccines and the other pharmaceuticals, you're in trouble. You're asking for trouble. I don't know if any study has ever been done and looking at the percentages of autistic children, once again, that are in a pediatric practice versus a chiropractic practice. I'm sure that the incidence amongst those who are under chiropractic care is much, much, much less. And once again, like we said, for the top three things, this is just common sense. But medical doctors have lost the common sense, and we're here to bring it back.
Yeah, awesome. That's needed for sure, as we can see by not just the data on ADHD, but all the chronic illnesses, that have been through the roof in the last few generations. So now, a lot of our parents are kind of in the middle, right? They were going along doing whatever they thought was normal. Their children are 5, 6, 8, 10 years old, whatever it may be, and they've noticed that difficulties in school or behavior issues and that kind of stuff has been becoming more of a problem. So that's why they're here watching, learning, trying to educate themselves on natural solutions. How would you suggest they start? I know you mentioned getting gluten out. What are some, and those top 3 things, the sunshine and all that stuff, in terms of sort of nutrition and diet? Once you remove gluten, what else are some things that are sort of at the beginning stages?
Yeah, sure thing. And first of all, I do also want to say that we're not here to beat anybody up about this or to condemn anybody or to pass judgment on people. This is about what we do from today going forward. The past is the past. There's nothing we can do about the past except for let it go and move on to the wellness system. So aside from the top 3 things, aside from dialing your child in with a doctor of chiropractic and starting off in the healthcare model right from the get-go as opposed to the sickness model, the next thing, of course, I would look at, and this is all kind of simultaneous, but it's the environmental chemicals that are around that child. And that can be laundry detergent, fabric softener, dryer sheets, colognes, perfumes, personal care products, shampoos, Glade plugins. Get all of the chemicals out of your house immediately, and you will see changes in the behavior overnight. And that's simple. I mean, if the parent of the child with autism says, I can't change his diet that easy, well, I know for sure that they don't need Downy fabric softener and Bounce dryer sheets and Glade plugins. Get the chemicals out of your house now. Do that. Get an air purification system, a portable air purifier. And I hate to push, stuff that's on my website necessarily, but I sell health and wellness. And on our website, we've got the Austin air purification system, and it's made in Buffalo, New York. It's a standalone unit, solid piece of steel. Clean out the air from your child's environment. That'll be tremendous benefit to you and to your family. Whatever you bring into your house, is it toxic or not? If it's toxic, don't bring it in. If you don't know, ask somebody who does.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that sort of what's tying through all this message is, there's a lot, because I mean, as a parent, you could step back and be like, oh my gosh, I got to change everything. But, I look at it like our kids are kind of the canary in the coal mine in a lot of cases. They're having these symptoms and these chronic conditions now as kids. That should be the red flag, and so it usually does require quite a drastic change, lifestyle wise. But that distinction of the sick care versus the healthcare model, if our goal is to move them towards a healthy lifestyle, for now and the future, we really, have to look at making some of these significant changes, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, I think really, even for the healthy, for the parents of healthy, children out there, and mental health and physical health, this information I think that we're giving is just so valuable because this is how we're going to prevent disease down the road. This information prevents a child from developing cancer when they're 25, or heart disease when they're 45, or dementia when they're 65. This is really critical information. And you're right. I mean, like you said in the beginning, I mean, I know both sides of the equation here. I spent so many years in the sickness model. I know everything on that side. And now I know the wellness side. And I know what the wellness side can do. And for any condition, when you go after the causation and make those changes, and you're talking to a guy who, when I met my wife, I was eating McDonald's, cookies, cupcakes. I mean, if there was Krispy Kreme donuts in the hospital, I would eat those. And Diet Mountain Dew. I would get pages back in the day of pagers from the nurses on different units, and they would call up to the unit and say, "Hey, it's Dr. Wolfson," and they would say, "Dr. Wolfson, you forgot your liter bottle of Diet Mountain Dew. Come up and get it." And I would run up the stairs and go get it. So I know that side. I was not raised in a healthy fashion, but I wish I was. I'm not upset with anybody about the fact that I was not. My parents did not know any better, and now you do. So now you know the truth. It's up to you to act about it, and that's why this is the truth about ADHD. You're getting the truth.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, that's so interesting too to consider that, you went through all that training. You mentioned 10 years of schooling and training, and yet there you were eating McDonald's, eating, donuts and drinking Diet Mountain Dew. And it just shows how devoid of any sort of real nutrition and lifestyle health that you get trained, at least in a real way that you would implement it yourself in that, the Western medical system.
We get no training whatsoever. We get no training in really no training in causation is what it amounts to. We are just taught about the pills and the procedures that we do, angiograms and stents and CT scans and MRIs. That's all that we learn. And we never learn about the importance of sunshine, the importance of sleep, the importance of chemical avoidance and detoxification and healthy detoxification ways, and the important all these things that we talk about. We never learn about them. And so when you say, oh well, I'll ask my pediatrician what he thinks about what Wolfson just said. Well, of course they're going to disagree, because they're just in the sickness model and they see a million sick children and they're so busy, they're so overworked. The pediatricians, they see so many people so quickly. It's just really a shame. So
yeah. Well, I appreciate you mentioning, what aside from just sort of taking some tips from this, what direction to go, get yourself and your children into the wellness model, with seeing a doctor of chiropractic and really, shifting that. That's how we've done it in my family. My kids, I've had people ask, I have 3 daughters and my youngest is 3, and what pediatrician does she go to? It's like, well, me. I mean, she doesn't have a pediatrician, a standard pediatrician. There's never been a need, and if she has an emergency or something, then sure. But, she's healthy.
Well, if she has an emergency, she goes to an emergency room.
Right.
So for me, the standard pediatrician, now, once again, there are, advanced pediatrics that are necessary, like if, for children, maybe with cancer, maybe with this and that. I mean, I guess there's something for that. But for the standard pediatrician, what do? They administer vaccines. And then once you have a child who's sick from the vaccines and their immune system is damaged, now they're prone to ear infections and sinus infections and behavioral, disorders from everything else coming in. Sorry, and I apologize to my friends in the pediatric profession, and the people that I trained with that went into pediatrics, but they're worthless. There really is no need for them when you go to a chiropractor or even a natural.
Oh, there you are.
There's really no need for those pediatricians when you go to a doctor of chiropractic or even like a naturopathic physician. So,
yeah, absolutely. Someone who's going to help your child or yourself stay healthy or improve.
I'm sorry to interrupt again,
No
but
worries.
I do want to say that, sometimes the naturopathic physician can be very good, but I think also because they do have prescription rights, that can also lead them to go down the prescription route a little too easily in some cases. So like I said, in this scenario, let's make sure that we're always natural. There's natural cures for everything.
Yeah, for sure. And the truth is getting out there too, not just our push with the truth about ADHD, but we see it everywhere, documentaries and things like this, online summits. The information is definitely spreading of what other options there are rather than just the prescription pharmaceutical route. So it's a great time to be alive in terms of that, in terms of the information getting out there. Go ahead.
Can I interrupt one more time?
Yeah, no worries.
For difficult children or really for anybody, I think that mold exposure is a big problem all around the world and certainly in the United States. So rainy climates, the mold is just so ubiquitous, so prevalent so everywhere in our society. And you may want to hire a mold expert or even an environmental expert to examine your household environment, but that does need to include an extensive mold inspection, because mold exposure and the mold spores cause every type of symptom you can imagine. And I think that's another scenario where if you remedy that, that'll be tremendous. So get an environmental expert. And then also back to the electronics issue, all of the EMF coming from things like the Wi-Fi or the smart meter or cell phone towers nearby. That's something else that you want to get rid of or mitigate. Get that out of your child's life as much as possible. To me, when I see a child who is on the spectrum, and one of the things that for entertainment, I mean, the parents just have the headphones on because they've got noise sensitivity, but then also just to keep the child distracted and busy. You got this EMF bomb on their ears. I want to take that off, and I want to take the child and run and put him on the island with Tom Hanks, and they'll be a new kid.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are very valid and valuable points also to consider. Again, sort of like not that, I think maybe everybody should go out and live in a cave somewhere or, on a desert island, but so many of the things we take as normal, living indoors is what, why we would have these molds that are problematic, or, even now in our conversation here, the wonders of the internet, but, there's EMFs from, the device I'm on, the device, and so it's just understanding and learning that balance in our modern lifestyle to try to remove as much of that as possible is what I hear you saying.
Yeah, I mean, and like you said, we're not necessarily recommending people go move off to a cave. All I'm saying is that if you did, you'll probably be healthier. That's all I can tell you. That may not be realistic, right. But we're just giving people all the options, and as much as they can achieve, like I said, that Tom Hanks lifestyle, the better their health is going to be. People come to see me from all over the world. But the majority of people that come to see me are from cloudy climates. They're coming from Seattle, Portland, Canada, Minnesota, upstate New York. They're coming from Norway. They're coming from Russia. They're coming from Poland to come see me. And it's a sunshine deficiency syndrome is what it is. And that's for all illness. So the more changes we make, the better the health is going to be. That's all there is to it.
Well, since you mentioned that, and I happen to be in the Pacific Northwest, what do you do in terms of, what do you recommend in terms of that? I mean, certainly the vitamin D is only one piece of the puzzle. What do you recommend for those people who live in those northern climates?
Okay, well, number one, I would say move. Move to a sunny climate. Move to Arizona, where we're from. It's sunny in Arizona 400 days a year. It's sunny in Arizona at night. Okay, so you can't move, then you better take a lot of vacations to sunny climates. Okay, you can't take a lot of vacations. Well, soak up as much sun. When the sun is out in your area, get outside and embrace that sun immediately, and as much morning sun, noontime sun, evening sun. Each one of them is different. Each one has benefit. And then, lastly, that's where, vitamin D supplements can come into play. But, when you're asking for my best opinion, it's move. Next is taking a lot of vacations. For every 6 weeks, you're in every 5 to 7 weeks, you're in a cloudy climate, then I would spend 5 to 7 days in a sunny area. And like I said, that can be Mexico, that can be Arizona, that can be Southern California, that can be Florida. Go find it.
All right. And what's your opinion on any of those sort of, I guess, artificial sunlight things, those lights that they sell for people with seasonal affective disorder and that type of stuff?
Yeah, I think that they're beneficial, and you're right. I think that is a good point. It'll never be the same as the sun, but I think there is benefit to it. Tanning beds have pros and cons. With tanning beds, you can clearly abuse them, but you want to find a tanning bed if you were going to go down that route with UVA, UVB exposure, so you get the benefits of both. And if you think both are dangerous, I mean, our bodies are solar panels. Our skin is a solar panel that accepts UVA and UVB. The eye is a collector of light, of course, that takes the energy from the sun and turns it into chemical energy in our bodies. So we're built for sun exposure. Like I said, we were born in the sun, and the sun has been around for 11 billion years. So embrace it. But I do think that, and I do think, Brad, it is worth the experiment. So you can try one of those lights and see what that does for your child.
All right. Awesome. Just looking out the window over here behind my computer and see the sun is peeking out. So as soon as we hop off this, I'm going to go out there and get some sun exposure on my skin, because we are just shifting into that winter time here in the Northwest. So awesome. Well, thanks. I appreciate, you taking your time with us and sharing just, a piece of that sort of, your incredible experience and knowledge and wisdom with us and with our parents who are really working on helping their kids, regain their health and be able to achieve their full potential in life. And so there's a ton of really good stuff you've shared that people can really just start to implement right away. That's awesome.
You got it. And then, one more thing about, the vaccines. I mean, there is data, of course, if you Google William Thompson and the CDC whistleblower, and the purpose of the movie Vaxxed was all about exposure of fraud at the CDC, how they hid data that African-American boys have a 3 times higher risk of autism when they're given the MMR vaccine before the age of 3. So the reality is that we have no idea what 69 or 72 doses of 17 different vaccines is doing to our children. In no way, shape, or form can it be beneficial. Obviously, it's injecting pollutants and chemicals into the system that all cause immune reactivity. And then once you have that high immune reactivity and inflammation, now the brain is inflamed, and that's, neuroinflammation is synonymous with autism spectrum disorders. So it's in the literature: aluminum, the mercury, the polysorbate 80s, the antibiotics, all these different things that are in the vaccine. And then, you start from day one with the hepatitis B vaccine and the vitamin K shot, and the child has no chance.
Right. So certainly there's a lot of people looking into that, that just like the other stuff we were talking about, the information and sort of that being exposed is getting more out there, the advent of social media and all the different things. More and more parents are hearing that that's a possibility, or waking up to the reality of what you just shared. And there's a lot of people who, again, are entering this when their kids are 5, 6, 10, have had a series of vaccinations. They're on board. They want to stop, or they are stopping. They're not going to give them more. But then they're concerned about, the damage that's been done or what they do about it. How do you respond to that? Aside from the things we've already talked about, and maybe that's the answer, what other steps could they take to help their kids, sort of recover from the injury?
Well, I think the first thing is to find a holistic doctor to guide you. Mm-hmm. That's going to be the first thing you're going to do. And then everything else that we said from a lifestyle standpoint is going to be very beneficial. But, as far as I'm concerned, children are born to be exposed to viruses and bacteria and parasites. And when they're a healthy child and they're exposed to those things, then they will, it'll be a piece of cake. They'll walk in the park, whatever metaphor you want to use. Children are not born to be sick. That's why we have immune systems, and a healthy immune system will defeat anything. And that includes, viruses, bacteria, parasites. That includes the ability to defeat cancer and heart disease and anything else. So plug into the natural health system, and you'll take your kid and your own health very far.
Awesome. Well, thanks for adding that at the end too, because I think that's an important piece, to talk about and to mention also. So, all right. So if somebody wants to know more about you, I imagine there's going to be, people who want to follow up with what you're doing, learn more from you. What's the best way to do that? I know you mentioned your website, but go ahead and tell us that again, if you would.
Yeah, head on over to thedoctorswolfson.com, and doctors is abbreviated DRS. We're on Facebook, so we love, for you to, be our friends on Facebook at the Doctors Wolfson, also on Instagram at the Doctors Wolfson. We're always trying to post either, good health information or recipes or the lifestyle that we're leading, inspirational pieces to show people, hey, you can do this. And in addition, my book, The Paleo Cardiologist, The Natural Way to Heart Health, over 240 pages, over 300 references, just great information, not only about heart health, but total body health and wellness. And to put your child on that plan will lead to a healthy child.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much again. I really appreciate it. There was a wealth of stuff to cover, and I think that you made it sound manageable and doable for people who are really wanting to make a change and help their kids live healthy. So definitely, everybody watching, check out their website, their Facebook. Check out Dr. Jack's book. I've read it. Awesome stuff in there. A lot of good tips and guidance, and sort of the why behind it, so you understand why you're making these changes. So that you can, I think of it as so you can stay motivated through, there might be some challenges because you do, in a lot of cases, have to change a lot of your lifestyle, but it's totally worth it. And if you understand the benefit that you're going to get out of that, or the benefit you're going to get out of that, then it's much easier to take those steps that might seem challenging at first. So thanks for all the great work you're doing out there. And I look forward to staying in touch and watching what you guys do next to really help spread the message.
Thanks for having me on, Dr. Brad. I appreciate it.
All right. You're welcome. If you enjoyed this episode of Kids Eating Broccoli podcast, connect with us online. You can find us on Facebook at Kids Eating Broccoli Podcast or at Dr. Brad Ellisor DC. You can also go to our website, drellisor.com. That's DOCTORELLISOR.com. Go to iTunes and leave us a review and a rating, or on Stitcher. And be sure to keep in touch with us so you can hear the next episode. Sign up for our mailing list or like us on Facebook. You guys take care now, and let's make the next generation the best generation.